On September 11, 2003, the set of the ABC sitcom, 8 Simple Rules echoed with the infectious sound of John Ritter's laughter. He was the heart of the show, a comedy legend whose energy just lifted everyone up. But as the day went on, behind the jokes and warm smiles, a silent and devastating tragedy was taking shape. No one knew that these moments, captured forever by the on-set cameras, would be the final, heartbreaking record of a beloved star, recorded for the world just before he was stolen from it forever. This is the story of a day that started with laughter and ended in unimaginable loss, a moment-by-moment breakdown of John Ritter's last hours. John Ritter was more than an actor, he was a force of nature. For decades, he was a constant, comforting presence in living rooms everywhere. His brand of comedy was this incredible mix of brilliant physical timing and genuine, heartfelt warmth. He could fall over a couch with the grace of a silent film star and deliver a line with a twinkle in his eye that made you feel like you were in on the joke. To millions, he was the goofy and lovable Jack Tripper, the frantic dad from Problem Child, and a dozen other characters that all shared a piece of his own kindness. But to the people who knew him, who worked with him every day, he was just John. The guy who knew everyone's name, who treated the person serving coffee with the same respect as a network executive. He lived by a simple and profound rule: the lead actor sets the tone. And John Ritter's tone was pure joy. To really understand the weight of the day he was lost, you have to understand the light he brought into the world. Jonathan Southworth Ritter was born into show business on September 17, 1948. His dad was the famous singing cowboy Tex Ritter, and his mom, Dorothy Fay, was an actress. Entertainment was in his blood from the start. He went to Hollywood High, became student body president, and then headed to USC. He started off studying psychology, thinking about a career in politics, but the stage was calling his name. He switched his major to theater arts, graduated in 1970, and set out to make his mark. His early career was a steady climb, with guest spots on huge shows like Hawaii Five-0 and MAS*S*H Star. He even had a recurring role on The Waltons, which showed off his gentler side. But 1977 was the year his life changed forever. He was cast as Jack Tripper in a new sitcom called Three's Company. The idea was pretty risque for the time: a single guy has to pretend he's gay so he can live with 2 female roommates. It was a setup for total comedic chaos, and right in the middle of it all was John Ritter, the master of physical comedy. For 8 seasons, people watched Jack Tripper trip, stumble, and bumble his way through life. Ritter's co-star, the legendary Don Knotts, once called him the greatest physical comedian on the planet. It wasn't just about falling down, it was the art of the fall. The way he could show panic, confusion, and desperation with a single gesture was pure genius. He won both an Emmy and a Golden Globe for the role in 1984, cementing his place as a TV icon. But the man behind Jack Tripper was so much more than a clown. People who worked with him always talked about his depth, his kindness, and his professionalism. Priscilla Barnes, who joined Three's Company later on, remembered how Ritter would go out of his way to make guest stars feel welcome. He wasn't one of those moody, leave-me-alone actors, she told People magazine. He really wanted everyone to feel that he was approachable. She remembered him as a goofball with the energy of a third grader who would do anything for a laugh. That wasn't an act, it was just who he was. Throughout the 80s and 90s, Ritter built an incredible career. He starred in movies like Problem Child, bringing that frantic, fatherly love to the big screen. He also took on serious dramatic roles, most famously in the acclaimed film Sling Blade, proving his range went far beyond pratfalls. He even conquered Broadway. He was always working, always creating, and always touching the lives of his colleagues. Then, in 2002, lightning struck again. Ritter was cast as the lead in a new ABC sitcom, 8 Simple Rules for Dating My Teenage Daughter. He played Paul Hennessy, a dad working from home who suddenly has to deal with his 3 teenage kids full-time. The show was an immediate hit, mostly because of Ritter's brilliant performance. He was America's favorite dad all over again, mixing his signature comedy with a truly heartfelt portrayal of a father just trying to figure it all out. His on-screen daughter, a young Kaylee Cuoco, would later talk about the incredible impact he had on her. She remembers him telling her, "You have to remember when you're on a set, it's like a tree. Number one's here, and any way you act is all trickling down that tree. You can be a boss, you can get work done, but you can just be nice." This was the Ritter doctrine: kindness and professionalism, always. Cuoco remembered how he'd mess up his lines on purpose in front of the live audience just to make them laugh. He didn't take himself seriously, she said, a lesson that has stuck with her ever since. His friend Henry Winkler said that Ritter was grateful that lightning had struck again with 8 simple rules. He loved that cast. They loved him like a second family, Winkler later testified in court. John's life off set was just as full. He was a devoted family man. He had 3 kids from his first marriage, including actor Jason Ritter, and was married to actress Amy Yasbeck, with whom he had a young daughter, Stella. Henry Winkler recalled that every conversation with John always came back to his children. His pride, his love, his worry, Winkler said. He and Amy were, in Winkler's words, an unbelievable team. This was the man who woke up on the morning of September 11, 2003. A beloved icon, a respected pro, a loving husband, and a doting father. He was at the top of his game, leading a hit show, surrounded by people who adored him. It was a day that should have been full of promise, but it would end in a way no one could have ever seen coming. The sun came up over Los Angeles on what was supposed to be a day of celebration for the Ritter family. The date, September 11th, was already a day of national tragedy, but for John and his wife Amy, it was special. It was their youngest daughter Stella's 5th birthday. They had a party planned for that evening, a happy family get-together for their little girl. John started his day like any other workday, driving from his home in Beverly Hills to the Walt Disney Studios in Burbank, where 8 Simple Rules was filmed. The show was in its 2nd season and was a certified hit. The energy on set was high. Ritter, as the star of the show, was the center of that energy. That morning, the schedule involved filming a promo for the show and then rehearsing for an upcoming episode. Making a guest appearance that week was one of John's oldest and dearest friends, Henry Winkler. They had been close for 30 years, and having Winkler on set was a bonus, a chance for 2 old friends to hang out between takes. According to everyone there that morning, John was in his element. He was his usual self, vibrant, funny, and relentlessly upbeat. He filmed the promo, reportedly giving a lively interview, the last one he would ever give. Screen grabs from that final recording show the John Ritter everyone knew: wide smile, expressive eyes, a man totally at ease. He joked with the crew, keeping spirits high. Winkler later recalled their final conversation. At the time it felt completely normal, but it would soon be burned into his memory. The 2 friends were just catching up. As Winkler was getting ready for his scene, he noticed something was a little off. John was sweating. Not just warm from the studio lights sweating, but profusely. John told him, "I really need to get some water." Winkler, focused on his lines, replied, "I really need to memorize my lines." John went one way, and Winkler went the other. And that, Winkler would later say, was the last time I saw him. There was no alarm, no feeling that something awful was about to happen. It was just a normal exchange between friends. But it was the first visible sign that something inside John Ritter was going terribly wrong. He kept working, pushing through whatever was starting to bother him. He was a pro. The show must go on. But as the afternoon approached, that cheerful mask began to crack, and the private battle he was fighting would soon become terrifyingly public. The laughter that filled the soundstage that morning was about to be replaced by a very different sound. As the day shifted from morning to afternoon on the set of 8 Simple Rules, the vibrant energy John Ritter brought to the studio started to fade. Around 3 p.m., crew members noticed John wasn't himself. He looked pale, and the sweating Henry Winkler had seen earlier was getting worse. He was struggling through his scenes, which was a huge red flag for someone who was usually so effortless. By 4 p.m., during a rehearsal, the situation took a nosedive. John, who had been saying he felt sick, suddenly collapsed on set. Chaos erupted. A normal workday turned into a scene of pure panic. His co-stars and the crew rushed to his side. In a documentary about his life, Kaley Cuoco remembered the moment with painful clarity. All she could recall was screaming. The sound of laughter was gone, replaced by cries of fear. John was conscious but in terrible pain. He was sweating, vomiting, and complaining of severe chest pain. In that moment, everyone, including John himself, thought he was having a heart attack. It seemed like the only logical explanation for a man his age collapsing with those symptoms. The crew immediately called for paramedics. The Disney studio is located directly across the street from Providence St. Joseph Medical Center, the very same hospital where John Ritter had been born. As they were getting him ready to go, in a moment that says everything about his character, he gave his co-workers a thumbs up. It was a small gesture, but it was classic Ritter, trying to reassure everyone else even as his own body was failing him. He was rushed to the emergency room, arriving around 6 p.m. His wife, Amy Yasbeck, was called and she hurried to the hospital. The ER doctor's initial diagnosis seemed to confirm everyone's worst fear, a massive heart attack. They started treating him for it right away. But this diagnosis was a catastrophic, fatal mistake. John Ritter wasn't having a heart attack. He was suffering from something far rarer and deadlier, an aortic dissection. It's a tear in the inner layer of the aorta, the main artery carrying blood from the heart. As the tear grows, blood pumps between the layers of the artery wall, forcing them apart. If that outer wall ruptures, it's almost always fatal. The symptoms, that tearing chest pain, the sweating, the nausea, can look exactly like a heart attack, making it incredibly difficult to diagnose in a crisis. Tragically, the standard treatment for a heart attack can make an aortic dissection worse. Things like blood thinners, which are lifesavers for a heart attack, can actually speed up the bleeding and cause a rupture in a patient with a dissection. This is exactly what happened to John Ritter. The doctors, working under the wrong assumption, were inadvertently making things worse. As the evening went on, his condition didn't get better, it got dramatically worse. Only then, as the initial treatments failed, did the doctors realize their terrible error. They finally diagnosed the aortic dissection and rushed him into emergency surgery to try to repair the torn aorta. But it was too late. The damage was done. The time they lost because of the misdiagnosis was critical. At 10:48 p.m., surrounded by his wife Amy and his son Jason, John Ritter was pronounced dead. The man who brought so much laughter to the world had fought and lost his battle. He died just 6 days before his 55th birthday. The birthday party for his daughter Stella would never happen. The beloved dad from America's favorite new sitcom, and the cherished father of his own family, was gone. The news sent a shockwave of grief through Hollywood. The set of 8 Simple Rules fell silent. The next day, the cast and crew gathered, not to work, but to mourn. Kaley Cuoco described a scene of overwhelming sorrow. Everyone was just crying, bawling, she recalled. And then people started telling stories. In a perfect tribute to the kind of man Ritter was, it wasn't just the stars who spoke. A mailman from the studio lot asked if he could say something. He stood up and said, "I used to deliver the mail here. John would always say hi to me." And in that moment, everyone understood. Of course he did. That was John. He saw everyone. The death of John Ritter left a hole that was impossible to fill, both on 8 Simple Rules and in the hearts of his family and friends. The cast and crew were lost in grief, and ABC and Disney producers had an unthinkable problem. What do you do with a show when its heart has stopped beating? Production shut down immediately. The soundstage became a memorial. Behind the scenes, executives debated the show's future. There was even a controversial suggestion, reportedly from Disney's then CEO Michael Eisner, to write a pregnancy into Katie Sagal's character's storyline to, some felt, capitalize on the tragedy for ratings. That idea was met with fierce backlash and was quickly dropped. Ultimately, they made the brave and painful decision to continue the show and have his character, Paul Hennessy, pass away as well. It would turn a light-hearted sitcom into a raw, honest look at grief. 2 months after his death, 8 Simple Rules returned with a special 1-hour episode titled, Goodbye. The 3 episodes John had finished were aired first, each one introduced by his on-screen wife, Katie Sagal. The Goodbye episode was unlike any sitcom episode ever. It was filmed without a live audience, stripping away the laugh track and leaving only the raw emotions of the actors. The episode showed the Hennessy family getting the news that Paul had collapsed at a grocery store and died. The performances were heartbreakingly real because the actors weren't just mourning a character, they were mourning their friend. The rest of the season followed the family's journey through grief, with TV legend James Garner and comedian David Spade joining the cast to help fill the enormous void John left. The show ran for 1 more season before it was cancelled, its legacy forever tied to the loss of its star. For John's family, the grief came with questions and a deep sense of injustice. His widow, Amy Yasbeck, was convinced his death could have been prevented. The misdiagnosis cost him his life. In 2004, the Ritter family filed a wrongful death lawsuit against the cardiologist and the hospital, arguing that if they had diagnosed him correctly and quickly, he would still be alive. The legal battle was long and painful. Henry Winkler emotionally testified about his friend's final hours. The family settled with the hospital for a reported $14 million, but the case against the doctors went to trial. In 2008, a jury cleared the doctors, a devastating blow to the family, but for Amy Yasbeck, this was never just about money or blame. It was about turning a private tragedy into a public service. Soon after John's death, she founded the John Ritter Foundation for Aortic Health. Her mission was urgent: raise awareness about aortic dissection so other families wouldn't suffer the same preventable loss. She has dedicated her life to educating the public and doctors about the signs of thoracic aortic disease. The foundation promotes the Ritter Rules, simple, life-saving reminders about aortic dissection. Its pain is severe and sudden, often a tearing sensation, and it's critical to rule it out when a patient has heart attack symptoms. Kaylee Cuoco has become a huge supporter of the foundation, honoring the man who was her mentor. "I will always do anything that has his name attached to it," she has said, a promise she continues to keep. Through this work, John Ritter's legacy has grown. He's remembered not just as a comedy genius, but as a catalyst for change. His tragic death has saved countless lives by giving people the knowledge to recognize a silent killer. The final, heartbreaking moments of his life have been transformed into a powerful message of hope and prevention. John Ritter's life was a masterclass in comedy, but his legacy is also one of profound kindness and, now, of life-saving awareness. His ability to make people laugh was a true gift. Now, we want to hear from you. What's your favorite John Ritter movie, TV show, or memory? Share it in the comments below. Let's keep the laughter and the love he brought into the world alive. The final moments of John Ritter's life, recorded on a soundstage in Burbank, serve as a heartbreaking final act to an incredible career. A day that started with jokes and the promise of a child's birthday party ended in a tragedy that stunned the world. The cameras captured a man at the peak of his career, a comedy legend doing what he loved, completely unaware of the storm gathering inside him, but the story didn't end that night. From that profound loss rose a legacy of advocacy. Amy Yasbeck's tireless work with the John Ritter Foundation has turned a story of heartbreak into a force for change. The Ritter Rules are now a vital tool in emergency medicine, helping prevent the kind of fatal error that stole John from the world. He's remembered as Jack Tripper, the king of physical comedy. He's remembered as Paul Hennessy, the funny, loving dad. He's remembered for his boundless energy, his infectious laugh, and the simple kindness he showed to everyone, from superstars to studio mail carriers. His influence lives on in the actors he mentored, like Kaley Cuoco, who carries his lessons of professionalism and grace with her today. John Ritter's final moments were heartbreaking, but his life and legacy continue to be a source of joy, inspiration, and hope. He made the world a brighter place, and even in his absence, that light hasn't dimmed.